Have you ever wondered why a man can desire you, chase you, even claim to love you, and yet still fail to see you? Why he touches your body but avoids your soul? Why he hears your voice but ignores your silence? It is because he is not loving you. He is loving his reflection in you. And if that reflection doesn't match the fantasy, he turns away, emotionally cold, spiritually absent, silent not because he has nothing to say, but because your truth confronts a part of him he is not ready to meet. According to Jung, no man can truly love a woman until he confronts his own unconscious, until he wrestles with his shadow, reclaims his projections, and sees the feminine not as an escape, but as a mirror, because that is what the awakened woman becomes. Not a muse, not a savior, not a prize, but a mirror so brutally clear, so achingly honest that she forces him to face himself. This is the alchemy of the feminine, not softness without discernment, but magnetism sharpened by spiritual clarity. She does not seduce by pleasing, she magnetizes by being. A woman becomes a mirror when she no longer bends to male fantasy, when she no longer confuses being loved with being needed, when she stops trying to be enough for a man who hasn't yet become enough for himself. And make no mistake, this woman is not cold, she is clear, clear enough to reflect the truth a man hides from, clear enough to reveal the split within him, the boy who wants to be mothered and the man who fears being truly seen. This is why she is dangerous. This is why he both craves and fears her, because the mirror exposes everything. It reflects his longing, his wounds, his unfinished childhood, his unspoken guilt, and his secret need for validation. But it also reflects his potential, if he's brave enough to see it. Yet many aren't, and so they reject her. Or worse, they try to distort her reflection. They keep all her too much, too intense, too emotional, too unattainable, not because she is any of those things, but because she sees too clearly, feels too deeply, and loves too consciously. She doesn't perform femininity, she embodies it, and that embodiment is terrifying to a man still lost in ego, because when a woman stops being a mirror of a man's fantasy, she becomes the mirror of his truth, and that truth is often unbearable. He cannot love her, not truly, until he sees why he's drawn to her, until he realizes that his attraction is not about her beauty, her softness, or her sexuality, but about the part of him that wants to awaken. She becomes the catalyst, not through seduction, but through stillness, not through control, but through presence. She watches as he projects, as he idolizes, as he withdraws, as he blames, and she does not chase, she does not explain. She does not collapse into proving her worth, because the mirror does not move. You see, feminine alchemy is not about turning wounds into weapons. It is about turning illusion into light. The woman who becomes a mirror doesn't lose her heart. She reclaims it. She no longer offers it to be devoured. She no longer bleeds for a man who hasn't faced his own pain. She stands, not with pride, but with reverence, for herself and for the man who might one day meet her there. He will try to love her before he's ready. He will mistake desire for devotion. He will speak in promises but act in avoidance. He will call her the one, even as he runs from her depth, and she will see through all of it, not with judgment, but with a quiet knowing. She has become the mirror after all, and in that mirror everything is revealed, even his love, especially his fear. So when he tells you he loves you, ask yourself, what is he loving? The fantasy he has projected, or the woman who stands unmoved? Because if he cannot say, he himself in your clarity, if he cannot face the reflection, you will become unbearable, not because you are too much, but because you are just enough to awaken him. And that is the most terrifying thing of all. But what happens when the mirror no longer flatters him? When she stops softening her edges to soothe his wounds, when her silence no longer plays the role of compliance but of confrontation? A woman who has undergone the fires of her own shadow knows that love without truth is not love, it is dependence. She does not seduce with illusions. She radiates from wholeness, and wholeness in a world built on emotional performance feels like rebellion. Most men have been taught to seek comfort, not transformation. Their image of love is shaped by a mother's approval or the lack of it. So when a woman offers them spiritual accountability, they flinch, they run, They collapse back into ego, demanding warmth without depth, affection without reflection. But the mirror doesn't apologize for its sharpness. It shows him the cracks in his armor, the boy beneath the bravado, the shame behind his silence, the hunger in his eyes that no physical body can satisfy. He wants her to make him feel like a man. But a conscious woman does not validate incomplete masculinity. She reflects it, and in that reflection, a choice is born: evolve or escape. This is the crux of feminine alchemy. It is not the manipulation of attraction, but the sacred art of becoming the catalyst. She does not seek love that consumes her. She holds space for love that transforms him. The archetypal feminine is not passive. She is not merely receptive. She is alchemical. She takes the raw material of male desire and holds it to the fire of her knowing. She watches what survives. Lust burns, fantasy dissolves, only truth remains. This is the love that Jung spoke of, not the sentimental, not the performative, but the integrative, the kind that demands death of the false self before any intimacy can be born. So many women are still trying to be enough for AM. And who has not even become enough for himself? They confuse availability with love, attention with depth. They overfunction, overgive, overcompensate, believing that if they just pour enough in, he will finally awaken. But the mirror does not pour, it reflects, and in that reflection, the woman begins to remember who she is. She is not here to be chosen. She is here to choose. She is not here to chase a man's potential. She is here to embody her own, and it is precisely that embodiment that haunts him, because he senses her power, but doesn't yet have the capacity to meet it. Men often crave the very women they are not ready for. They long for the mystery, the depth, the radiant silence that seems to hold lifetimes. But when they get close, they find themselves confronted, not with rejection but with responsibility. She does not demand that he be perfect, but she refuses to carry his unconscious. This is what separates the mirror from the muse. The muse inspires, the mirror initiates. The muse feeds his dreams, the mirror feeds his shadow. One is poetic, the other is perilous. To love a mirror is to die 1,000 ego death, to face the reflections that no one else has the courage to show you. It is to see the parts of yourself you've hidden under charm, success, or avoidance, and realize she sees all of it and still does not move. Because she is not here to save you. She is not your mother. She is not your therapist. She is not your fantasy. She is the sacred feminine in her truest form, calm, clear, unshaken. She will not lower her frequency to meet your comfort. She will stand in her light until you rise into your own, and if you cannot, she will walk away, not out of bitterness, but because the mirror only exists for those ready to see. She walks away without drama, without noise, without explanation. Because the mirror doesn't negotiate its clarity. It does not beg to be seen, nor chase after eyes that turn away. It simply remains, quiet, still, unaltered, knowing that those who can see will be changed forever, and those who can't were never meant to stay. This is what most men don't understand. They believe they're losing a woman, when in truth, they're losing access to their own awakening. The awakened feminine does not want to be worshipped. She wants to be witnessed. Not as an object of desire, but as a force of truth. But only a man who has met his own depth can witness a woman in hers. Anything less will try to possess her, control her, silence her, because she threatens the illusion. In her presence, his persona begins to unravel. The ego, once confident, begins to shake. The walls he built to keep love out and admiration in start to crumble. He may call her cruel for holding her ground. He may call her cold for not playing the game, but it's not cruelty, it's clarity. She's not detached because she doesn't feel. She's detached because she's done bleeding for men who refuse to heal. You see, a woman becomes the mirror only after she's been the rescuer, the fixer, the fantasy, only after she's poured herself out trying to earn love from men who didn't even know how to love themselves. She has cried, she has shrunk. She has burned at the altar of unworthiness. She knows what it is to lose herself for the promise of belonging. But now she knows better. She no longer confuses her empathy with responsibility. She no longer mistakes chemistry for connection. She no longer abandons her intuition to avoid being alone, because she has been alone, and in that solitude, she met her own soul. That is what made her a mirror, not bitterness, not ego, but rebirth. She has seen the ways she once betrayed herself, the way she gave without receiving, the way she waited for apologies that never came and chased pleasure that only time could deliver. Now she no longer performs her worth, she inhabits it, and that presence is magnetic. It draws men in, not because she tries, but because she is. They feel something ancient in her, something that speaks not to their ego, but to their emptiness, their longing, their deep, aching need to be seen. But here is the paradox. The man who is drawn to her is often not the man who is ready for her. He wants her fire, but not the heat it brings to his wounds. He wants her love, but not the death it requires of his ego. He wants her softness, but not the steel beneath it. And so when she begins to mirror back the truth, he recoils, not because she is unlovable, but because she is undeniable. And to love a woman who is undeniable means facing every part of yourself you've worked to hide. It means learning that real intimacy is not comfort, it's confrontation. It's not validation, it's revelation. She will show you the ways you abandon your own heart, the places where your masculinity is still performative, the parts of you still seeking permission to feel. She doesn't do this with cruelty. She does this by being, by refusing to collapse into the roles you expect her to play, by holding her standard even when it scares you, by staying still when you withdraw so you can finally meet the silence you carry inside. This is love, not as possession, but as permission. Permission to evolve, to disintegrate, to rebuild, but only if you choose to look, only if you choose to stay when the reflection gets hard to bear. Because if you don't, she will leave, not in anger, but in sovereignty, not to punish you, but to protect herself. Because a woman who becomes the mirror will never again become the illusion. There comes a moment, quiet, unceremonious, when a man realizes what he has lost. It doesn't hit him in the chaos of her departure, not in the silence of her unread messages, not in the sting of seeing her move on. It comes later, often much later, when the next woman doesn't stir his soul, when the charm wears thin, when the world goes quiet and he is left alone with the self he never dared to meet. And suddenly, her absence becomes the mirror he refused to look into when she was present. This is the sacred cruelty of feminine alchemy. It never forces a man to awaken, but it never leaves him unchanged. Because once he stood in front of that kind of woman, the kind who sees into him, not around him, no surface attraction can satisfy him again. He may try to return to the familiar, to the simple, to the unchallenging, but nothing tastes the same, nothing feels real, because she was real. And now the fantasy is no longer enough. He begins to unravel, not from her love, but from her absence. The very silence he once resented now echoes like thunder. The boundaries he called walls now look like the only form of love that ever asked him to rise. But by then, she has already transcended the story. She is no longer waiting for him to change. She has become something he cannot reach, not because she is hiding, but because she has elevated. You see, feminine alchemy is not about waiting for a man to evolve. It's about becoming so whole, so integrated, so full of self, that his evolution becomes irrelevant to your own. It's a love that no longer begs, no longer bargains, no longer believes that salvation comes in the form of his return. Because once you become the mirror, you see the truth. You were never meant to be the lesson and the reward. You were meant to reflect his initiation, not to guide it. And that, perhaps, is the most painful liberation of all, realizing that love doesn't always mean union, that deep soul recognition doesn't always lead to relationship, that your presence in his life may have only one purpose: to awaken what he refuses to see. And when you understand this, when you feel it in your body, in your bones, in the sacred ache of your own rebirth, you stop romanticizing potential, you stop performing for crumbs, you stop shrinking your light to fit into a man's comfort zone. Because you know, if he cannot love you as a mirror, he will never love you at all. He will love the projection, the role, the echo of his ego, but never the truth of you. And the truth of you is not easy to hold. The truth of you demands presence, humility, the death of the boy within him who still needs to conquer rather than connect. You are not here to carry his pain, nor translate your value into a language he understands. You are here to be seen fully by someone capable of vision, and until he becomes that man, your love will feel like fire. Not because you burn him, but because your very being exposes what is unlit within him. So you stop chasing, you stop fixing, you stop trying to prove that your softness is not weakness and your silence is not a void. Because you've remembered who you are. You are the flame, not the moth. You are the reflection, not the performance. You are the invitation, not the initiator. You are the mirror, and your clarity will either awaken him or send him running. Either way, your work is not to hold him, it is to hold yourself. Because the man who is meant for you will not flinch at the reflection. He will stay, he will see, and more than that, he will transform. There is a kind of woman whose love is not easy, not soft in the way the world expects, not pliable in the way ego desires. Her love is a force, a current that pulls everything false to the surface. She does not speak loudly, she does not demand attention, but when she enters a man's life, everything shifts. Not because she performs, but because she reveals. Her very presence dismantles illusions. Her absence haunts the soul. Because she is not offering herself, she is offering a mirror. And for the man who is brave enough to look, to really look, what he sees is not her beauty, not her kindness, not her affection, but the fracture within himself. This is the price of truth. To love a mirror is to surrender the identity that once kept you safe. It is to admit that what you thought was masculinity was often just avoidance wrapped in strength, that what you thought was control was really fear. That your desire to possess her was born from your inability to hold yourself. A conscious woman, one who has become the mirror, will not rescue you from these truths. She will not soothe the parts of you screaming for validation. She will not water herself down to become digestible to a man who is emotionally starving. Because she knows you cannot feed someone's soul while they are still chasing surface pleasures. She has become the woman who no longer needs to be chosen. She has chosen herself. And in doing so she has become dangerous, not in cruelty, but in clarity, the kind of clarity that disorients, that strips a man of his false confidence and demands something deeper, something real. This is the paradox of feminine power. It invites without pursuing, it offers without begging, it opens without surrendering sovereignty. She is the storm and the stillness, the mother and the muse, the fire and the water. And the man who tries to love her without confronting his own depth will always feel like he is losing her, not because she is pulling away, but because he is floating on the surface of himself while she resides at the bottom of the ocean. You can't meet a woman in her fullness while living in your fragments. You can't merge with someone who has done the inner work while you're still avoiding your own. You can't love a mirror without first seeing what it reflects and loving that too. So many men fall in love with the idea of a powerful woman. I say they want depth, mystery, passion. But when those things stand before them, not as performance but as presence, they shrink, they retreat. They label her intimidating, complicated, too much. But the truth is, she's simply not bendable. Not anymore. She's done being palatable. She's done being a projection. She's done sacrificing her intuition for the illusion of connection. The woman who becomes a mirror has burned for this clarity. She has sobbed in the dark over men who loved her halfway. She has questioned her value, doubted her power, tried to earn love through softness, silence, and sacrifice, but not anymore. Now she does not seek to be understood, only to be met. And if he cannot meet her, she will not break. She will bless him with her absence, not out of revenge, but out of reverence for the sacred within herself, because she knows she is not here to convince a man of her worth. She is here to walk with one who already sees it, who has already seen himself. That man exists, and he won't see her clarity as a threat. He will see it as an invitation. He won't try to possess her mystery. He will protect it. He won't run from her emotional depth. He will dive into it because he has faced his own. That man will not be drawn to her light while fearing her shadow. He will honor both. and she will know the difference, because the mirror does not forget what it has seen. It remembers every man who turned away, every boy who wanted her light without earning her truth, every soul who loved the surface and ran from the storm. But when the one arrives who stays, who reflects her back to herself with the same honesty, the same reverence, the same stillness, the mirror softens, the fire opens, and for the first time she knows this love does not require her to disappear. It allows her to be fully seen. When she is fully seen, everything changes, not because she has been waiting, but because she has been becoming. This love, rooted in consciousness, not craving, does not come to rescue her. It does not arrive in grand gestures or romantic promises. It arrives in presence, in stillness, in a man who has walked through the same fires and comes not to take, but to witness. This is the final stage of feminine alchemy, not detachment, not bitterness, not superiority, but embodiment. She no longer needs to mirror what others want to see. She becomes the mirror of her own soul, flawless not in perfection, but in authenticity. Her power no longer needs to test men. Her silence is no longer a defense. It becomes an invitation for the right one to enter, if he dares, into the temple of truth she now inhabits. And the man who can love this kind of woman has suffered too. He has died to his illusions. He has wrestled with his ego and emerged humbled, not defeated. He does not need her to shrink. He doesn't require her to soften her voice or dim her knowing. He does not flinch when she feels deeply or walk away when she demands honesty. He has done his work. He has looked into his own mirror and faced the hollowness of performative masculinity. He has seen the boy in himself and held him instead of hiding him. He has broken under the weight of his own emotional illiteracy and rebuilt himself not with bravado, but with truth. And so, when he meets her, there is no conquest, there is no seduction, there is simply recognition. A quiet, almost sacred acknowledgement that says, there you are. There are no games, no power struggles, no roles to perform or masks to maintain. There is only space, safety, depth, because now the mirror is not cold, it is clear, and in that clarity, love becomes possible. Not the distorted love that demands sacrifice, not the immature love that fears feminine power, not the conditional love that requires constant reassurance, but the rare, holy kind of love that can only exist between two people who have met themselves in the dark and chosen to rise. This love is slow, intentional, fierce. It holds room for silence and space, for distance and desire. It is not afraid of losing because it does not cling. It does not possess. It does not control. It flows. And from this space the woman no longer needs to teach through absence. She no longer needs to be the storm that awakens or the silence that reveals. She becomes what she was always meant to be, the sacred embodiment of the feminine in her fullest expression, both flame and breath, both wound and healer, both mirror and muse. She chooses, not out of lack, not out of loneliness, but from abundance. Because the woman who has become the mirror no longer needs to be chosen to feel worthy. She is worthy because she sees herself. And that is the most dangerous, beautiful, unstoppable energy of all. So, if you are a woman on this path, remember, you do not need to fight to be seen. You do not need to beg to be loved. You do not need to twist yourself into a version of softness that is digestible to men who fear your depth. You only need to become the mirror, still, clear, sovereign, and trust that the man who can truly love you will not run from the reflection. He will meet it, because only when a man has faced himself can he stand beside a woman who has done the same, and only then does love stop being a performance and become a revelation. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.